Hey, welcome. We're all fascinated by the things we can't quite see. The stories with missing pieces, the questions that just don't have easy answers. It's really at the core of who we are. So today, we're going to dive deep into this obsession we have with the unknown.
I mean, really think about it. It's a question that drives so much of our culture, right? Why do we all lean in a little closer when someone says, "Hey, can you keep a secret?" It's because a secret feels like a hidden world, a little piece of reality that's just beyond our grasp. We're just totally drawn to the idea that there's more to the story, more to everything than what we see on the surface.
Just picture it, a folder stamped with top secret. The pull is instant. It promises knowledge that could totally reshape how we see history, our governments, maybe even reality itself.
Or what about the magnetic pull of a cold case file? These are the stories that really stick with us, They're the mysteries that defy simple answers and mess with our sense of order in the world.
And then you've got the power of forbidden knowledge, the ancient texts, the old traditions that exist out on the fringes. They suggest that maybe, just maybe, there are other ways of knowing, other truths out there for us to find.
So, in this explainer, we're basically going on a journey through all these hidden worlds. We're going to start with the official stuff, government secrets, and then we'll move out to the very edges of investigation and belief, all while exploring our relentless search for the things we aren't meant to know.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this search for secrets, we first have to understand how they're kept. The US government, for example, has this massive, superstructured system designed not just to classify information, but also, and this is key, to eventually release it.
So this is really interesting. These are basically the three main public doorways to all those secrets. First, you've got the FBI Vault. Think of it as a digital library for files that a lot of people are curious about. Then there's the CIA's CREST system, which holds literally millions of pages on old intelligence operations. And finally, you have NARA, the National Archives, which is kind of like our nation's official memory, holding on to all the federal records that have historical value.
So these archives are out there, but how do we, as regular citizens, actually get the keys? Well, that brings us to the tools people can use to actively pry open these vaults of information.
All right, so there are two main legal tools you can use. The Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, is like the broadsword. You can make pretty general requests for all sorts of material, classified or not. Mandatory Declassification Review, or MDR, is more like a scalpel. It's only for classified documents, and you have to know exactly what you're asking for. Here's the crucial trade-off. FOIA lets you sue in court if they say no, but with MDR, you get an appeal with a special panel that actually overturns agency decisions about 75% of the time. Pretty amazing, right? But here's the cool part. You don't have to do it all yourself. You have organizations like the National Security Archive, which is more academic, and the Black Vault, which was founded by John Greenwald Jr., a civilian. These guys have filed tens of thousands of requests. They then scan and organize everything, creating these huge publicly available shadow archives that are often way easier to search through than the official government sites. And this is a perfect example of what public pressure can do. The UAP Disclosure Act is a huge deal. It forces government agencies to gather all their records on UAPs in one place and, get this, creates a presumption of immediate disclosure. It even introduced the term non-human intelligence into formal legislative language. That's a massive shift in transparency on a topic people are absolutely fascinated by. But what happens when the official documents, even the declassified ones, just don't have the answers? That's when people start looking to the fringes, creating their own investigations to try and fill in the blanks. So let's take a look at the work of David Paulides. He's a former police officer who became an investigator, and he's documented thousands of cases of people who have vanished in national parks under really bizarre circumstances. He calls this phenomenon Missing 411, and his work suggests that these cases share some very strange patterns that just don't fit with normal explanations, like animal attacks or just getting lost.
Okay, so this slide really gets to the heart of the whole debate. On one side, you've got Paulides pointing to these really weird correlations, like victims being found miles away with their shoes missing, or two people who vanished years apart happening to have similar three-letter names. But on the other side, you've got data scientist Kyle Polich, who argues that if you actually look at the raw data, these cases aren't statistically unusual at all. He suggests they can be explained by tragic but totally normal events like drownings, falls, or sudden medical emergencies. It's a perfect example of how the exact same data can be interpreted in two completely different ways, depending on whether you're looking for a pattern or just looking at probability.
When real-world data can't give us that sense of closure, we often turn to fiction. Horror, especially, has always been this amazing way for us to explore our deepest anxieties about power, control, and all the unknown forces that seem to shape our lives.
Just look at this quote about Mike Flanagan's Netflix series. It's brilliant. It perfectly captures how modern Gothic horror takes our current fears, in this case about corporate greed and the super rich, and recasts them into this classic, almost mythological battle between good and evil.
This slide really lays out the evolution of a story. The series takes Edgar Allan Poe's 1839 tale about a decaying, corrupt family and just masterfully updates it for our time. Now, the corrupt Usher family runs a pharmaceutical company, which is a really clear parallel to the real-world opioid crisis. The story becomes this powerful allegory for how unchecked power and zero accountability can rot a family and even a whole society from the inside out. And finally, when government files and fictional stories just aren't enough, a lot of people start to create their own frameworks for understanding and interacting with the world's mysteries. This is where the search for the unknown gets really personal.
The world of witchcraft is a fascinating way to see this in action. On one hand, you have traditional witchcraft, these ancient paths passed down through spoken tradition, deeply connected to a specific place and its spirits. Think of things like Scandinavian trolldom or American folk magic. Then, on the other hand, you have modern witchcraft, which is super eclectic and individual. It pulls from all kinds of sources: psychology, astrology, even pop culture, and it's thriving in the digital world with online covens and shared rituals. It's a living, breathing, evolving way to engage with the unseen.
So our journey started in the very structured, almost bureaucratic world of declassification, where the search for truth is a legal and archival fight, waged with requests and appeals. From there, we took a turn into the world of fringe investigation. We saw how the gaps in the official story become this fertile ground for new theories and patterns that challenge how we see everything.
And finally, we explored how we use fiction and spirituality as a form of catharsis. These are the powerful tools we use to process our deepest fears and create our own meaning in a world that is just full of unanswered questions.
Which really just leaves us with one final thought. In all our relentless digging through archives, our poring over strange data, and our crafting of new myths, are we really searching for some external truth? Or is this whole quest a reflection of something deeper, an attempt to understand our own place in this vast, mysterious universe? Maybe the more we search for what's out there, the more we actually discover what's in here. Thanks so much for joining.